Hey guys! Today we're going to be making a miniature budgie. If you'd like a video on a cage and some accessories, definitely let me know in the comments. Let's get started. As always when making the animals, I start out with a sketch so I know what size it should be. And because a bird like this is so simple, you don't really need a proper armature, so I just bent and twisted a piece of wire like this. You can then add some clay, kind of like the shape of a bowling pin, and begin sculpting. The clay I'm using is just some scrap clay, but you can also use clay in the color of the fur or feathers you're going to be adding. You only need to add a few details, so for the wings I just added a tiny ball of clay and flattened it out where the top of the wing is. And then for the legs I just bent and added a piece of wire. Lastly, you want to add the beak and the eyes, then pre-bake. And also before pre-baking I also added some liquid clay to where the legs are, just to strengthen them. After pre-baking you want to bend the wire so that it also forms one of the toes for the front, and then you want to make the rest of the toes using clay. Add some liquid clay to strengthen them, and bake again. After baking, I just roughly added some details using acrylic paint. This is mostly so that everything doesn't look the same when adding the fur and feathers, but it doesn't have to be perfect at this point. And because the fur and feathers I'm going to be using are white, I also painted the entire sculpture using white acrylic paint. Now for the belly, head, part of the wings and the back, I added fur and then I used feathers for the rest. If you have any questions about the fur and hair I use in my videos, I do have a video about it which you can find in my basics playlist. And as for the feathers, I get them from a few different places. You can buy these in craft shops or any store that sells fishing supplies. I also have some from my parents' parrot, and there are lots of people and websites selling feathers online as well. Some of them are cruelty free and some of them are not, so it all depends on where you get them. And once the glue has dried, you can trim off any excess fur to give the bird the right shape. Just like I've shown in previous videos, if you don't have feathers in the right size, you can cut off excess to create smaller feathers. The only problem with this is that it does waste a lot of the feather because the rest is pretty much unusable, at least for projects like this one. So if you are able to buy smaller feathers, I highly recommend it. I then glued a few feathers onto the tail, then added some fur to the back, added feathers for the wings, and then added some fur for the top of the wings. For the first layer of color, I just used an alcohol-based marker. You can also use alcohol ink. The reason why I'm using this is because if you're using paint, it will look a lot different and create layers, whereas the ink is kind of sucked up by the feather. If you don't have alcohol-based markers or alcohol ink, I do recommend either dyeing the feathers using special dyes or just using colored feathers. I also added some to the fur part just to make sure it matches. For the rest of the coloring, I used soft pastels and acrylic paint, and I applied the pastel with a damp brush to get more control and a better color payoff. Lastly, I just sealed the entire bird with a matte glaze, which does sound a bit weird, but it makes the fur lay down more smoothly, and it also protects both the pastel and the paint. Thank you so much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.